Hey everybody, getting ready to go live with the one and only Mr. Hutch, twitch.tv/Hutch. Everybody's personal favorite when you're into a rated R kind of experience. So, not recommending any kids go there. The kids who are on Chess TV, you're right where you need to be. Okay? Um, but gonna be fun. Hutch just let me know, texted me and said that he's gonna play one more song on his channel. He likes to also get his fans a little hyped up with some pregame music. I get the feeling he chooses a little bit more of a variety of beats than the old fashioned. Let's go ahead and listen to him for a second. Right, that I mean, obviously we need to add some more. Maybe we get a tune for every different type of show. But today's show, Chess Master Tips with Hutch. This is a show where we pair up a master, yours truly, against an amateur, and maybe we do some tips. I've only done one of these another time, but we have this show Amateur Hour, which I'm also going to be doing regularly. But this is a little bit of kind of a special Chess Master Tips where we work with somebody like Hutch, who obviously has a massive following over at his channel. If you're not familiar with who he is, he's one of the world's preeminent gamers, streamers. He has about 500,000 followers on Twitter and makes a living playing video games and providing commentary. So he makes guys like me look like jokers who are lucky enough to play chess and provide commentary. So I'm going to be working with him. We've got everything all set up here to have a fun little experience with Mr. Hutch, and hopefully things go according to plan. I'm currently trying to figure out exactly what's going on with how the screen capture got a little messed up. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. So I'm gonna try to figure that out real quick since we haven't started. We've going to have a couple plans here. We're going to be following Hutch live as he plays and providing some analysis where he's not listening to me, providing some commentary. We get to make fun of him behind his back and provide some advice on what he is doing and not doing correctly. And then we're gonna roll into some post-mortem together with our audios synced up and have a little bit of a banter and try to get to the bottom of what he can do to improve his chess game. So thanks everybody for being here as we wait just a few more seconds. That's exactly what this show is today. And impromptu, but tons of fun. Should be really interesting for the Twitch community who knows Hutch so well. And should be good fun all around. So okay. What is going on with this one here? Curious. So that's fine. The Firefox capture got a little bit off, huh? Not exactly sure what happened there. There we go. Love doing some last minute tech stuff. The fans love that too. So there we go. That should actually help things a little bit. And we've got all kinds of scenes set up here. So we get to pick our flavor. Big board for analysis, small board for analysis. It's going to be so much fun. All right, well, just waiting for Hutch right now. And that's it. Thanks everybody for being here. This is going to be fun. Checking out the Chess TV chat. You guys are already here, rocking and rolling. Yeah, it's a good soundproof room here. That's right. The whole room is soundproof. It's pretty phenomenal, if I don't say so myself.
All right, Daniel.
Hey there, man.
What's up? Are you live right now?
I am live, so go ahead and say hi to the Chess TV fans.
Hello, chess.tv people. I apologize for my gameplay, but hopefully Daniel's analysis can make up for it. So do you want to give out your stream? Like where can they find your stream?
Yeah, so anybody who wants analysis during the games while Hutch is focused, go to chess.com/TV or just go to the chess channel on Twitch. I think most of the Twitch community would rather just go to twitch.tv/chess.
Oh, you guys own that property?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have to buy that? Can I ask you that? Is that personal?
Actually, we got the hookups. We kind of were able to say, hey guys, we're chess.com. When you already have the domain name chess.com, they tend to want to work with you.
Yeah.
So without getting into all the details, we discussed things with Marcus there, who's kind of one of the head guys of content over at Twitch.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were sort of shopping around, and I wasn't even sure where we were going to make our home for, like, what platform and what portal. And I think Marcus, some random guy had chess but hadn't streamed in years, and we said, hey, we want that channel, and Marcus made it happen. So
yeah, that's cool. It's nice OG Twitch name there.
Yeah.
Okay, so without further ado, why don't we just jump into this?
Let's do it. I'm following you. The fans are ready.
So what do you think, 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Why don't we start out with a 10-minute or two, just so you feel like you can really get into the game, and if we decide we want to squeeze in some more later on, we'll speed it up.
Okay, sweet. I just got my rating up to 1,400 again. I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to try really hard today. All right, so I'm going to join this game and then mute myself. So let's go ahead and do this.
Cool, and then you'll mute me on your end. So
yeah, I'm just going to deafen the whole Discord, so you won't hear me and I won't hear you.
Awesome.
All right, sweet.
All right, fans, here we go. Buckle up. Buckle up. I'm excited. Here he goes. Time to play. Time to get some games going. I haven't done this. We've been doing a lot of analysis actually like this. We had the club battles yesterday. If this is your first time at twitch.tv/chess and you're normally in the video game world with Hutch, we do this all the time. And we had a club battles yesterday, also going over games of, amateur players. Obviously Hutch is not a super professional chess player, last time we checked, right? Though he is a super professional at what he does. And here we go. We have an e4, e5 game. So I'm going to try a couple different things here. Right now you can see the big screen, the big board area over here is where Hutch is playing. We can see his time and we can see his game in live action. And then over here, you're going to see some analysis where if and when we want to analyze things and do some highlights on the board, we can do that. And I'll even go into some variations without disrupting your full experience following Hutch. Give me some feedback in the chat, seriously, because we are trying to perfect our chess broadcasting for the future of chess as an esport. And if you'd like to see us repeat this sort of thing, like in the Speed Chess Championships or the Pro Chess League or some of the other things that we do normally, maybe you like big board for analysis and small board kind of tucked away and out of the corner, right? Up to you. So, okay, first his opponent just wasted a tempo here with the move bishop to b5. It doesn't make sense, really, right, to go bishop to c4 and then bishop c5. And now he takes on c6. Obviously, our boy's going to take back. And so what's going to be Hutch's plan here? With an immediate opening of the center, probably Hutch needs to take here. And then look to put the bishop on this diagonal to play c5. I was going to say that normally one of the critical decisions here for black is where to put this bishop, because you're not sure if you're going to get a closed or open center. But in this game, the center's opening fast, and in fact, his opponent is playing really fast and kind of blunderful chess. I don't see any reason why Hutch shouldn't just take here and then go ahead and gobble up this pawn on d4. So the likely scenario here is that Hutch is going to go ahead and win a pawn, so he didn't. So that was a mistake. There was no reason for him not to take right there on f3 and then take on d4. His opponent, playing super fast, almost has him a little bit on his heels here. Mr. Pakimoto from Russia. I will be curious to talk to Hutch afterwards and see what his thoughts are psychologically, if he just, maybe needed to slow down a little bit, or if he was just miscalculating or what. But we'll see what he has to say after the game. Checking in with the fans here. Hey, everybody in Twitch. Just want to say hi to everybody. Fairy Tale Time, Hari Shiva, Dan G, Asturga, the real amps, all the regulars are here. Looks like you guys are choosing the chess stream over the Hutch stream. But I think most people should probably be here during the game because Hutch is going to be kind of just focused on his chess, and hopefully we can learn something. So let's focus on that. Hutch has doubled rooks, and that's correct to guard the c6 pawn, which was the main problem. But I think, again, the critical moments of this game are going to come back to the decisions he made right back here, where my initial suggestion was going to be to capture the pawn, put the bishop here, and then play c5. When you have the bishop pair prying for the opening of the center, certainly, in your goals. But after bishop g4, his opponent should have captured immediately and gone for sort of a similar combination that we're seeing in the game with the queen trade, but he didn't. Instead, he played h3, and Hutch had even better than the initial thing I recommended to take here and play bishop b7 if he had just captured f3 and won the pawn. So now he's in a bit of trouble, and a lot of it just comes back to that critical moment there where he handled the tension and maybe didn't handle it his best. Although now this game has been drawn very quick.
I don't know why he drew that, but
yeah, kind of strange, right? He took a repetition there when he was up a pawn.
Yeah, I thought a draw was a victory in that one.
Yeah, I think for you it is, and let me go ahead and grab the analysis, and you're already invited to our analysis board, our chess with Hutch, right? Yep.
I'm looking at it right now.
So I'm going to go ahead and paste the game and bring us up to what we have here. So what I was telling the fans, I'm going to go ahead and flip the board so those watching it on my stream are seeing it as black. But you played a great start to the game, right? This is just kind of typical. Oops,
wait,
what
I
happened there?
I lost the position. I tried to flip the board.
Oh, the board flip is not that little circle thing. Hold your mouse over the little arrow in the right corner.
Over the arrow in the corner?
The right corner of the board, there's a little resize board arrow, and if you hold your mouse there and scroll down, you'll see a thing that says flip board. When I say right corner, I mean the right corner above like the A1 or H8 square. Like there's a little arrow there that allows you to toggle and drag the board to be bigger.
I mean the A1 and the A8 square, is that what you said?
There's a little toggle thing to make the board bigger. Or actually in the chat you can type
right here. I see it. All right, we're good.
Oh, you did it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here we go. All right, so this is all good, and your opponent was the first one to kind of make a weird move, right? When he played this move, bishop b5, losing a tempo.
Right. Yeah.
So that's it's obviously not typical, to go out of your way to do that, but without getting into criticizing him too much, I think because he's not here, we don't care really. But this was all good for you. For him to go out of his way to give you the bishop pair and double these pawns really doesn't do a lot to hurt your position. Now. What was your thought, by the way, when he went out, just so we can provide the most educational context for you possible? What were you thinking when he went out of his way to do that?
I thought it was weird. I even made a comment about it. Not about the double pawns, because I'm not familiar with openings and positions enough to be able to appraise that as being good or bad. But I thought that it was weird that he moved the same piece twice and then exchanged his bishop for my knight. It felt a little early to do that.
So part of the reason I say this is not that big of a deal for you is because though these pawns are doubled, and yeah, that's never ideal, they're not really easily targetable as it is. They're not sitting ducks on an open file for a rook, or white doesn't have a lot of easy access to attacking these pawns. And further, the only way to really get access is to play d4, which opens the position, and that should actually favor you now that you have two bishops and he only has one, right? He went out of his way to give up this bishop.
Okay, all right.
So for the fans watching my stream at the time, I was suggesting for you that perhaps maybe you should have just gobbled the pawn and then played the move bishop to b7 to put the bishop on this really nice potential diagonal here.
Okay,
and
yeah.
One of the reasons I like that is because there's really no way for him to stop, he does some random move. There's no way for him to stop the move c5 and open the bishop. So
yeah, I guess.
And the advantage of that, okay, if he does something random, then you'll really just play c5, and then you're even threatening to just win a pawn right off the bat.
Right.
But even if he, if he smartly recognizes that there's a discovered attack coming, unleashing the bishop, this is still the kind of position that you're happy to play with a really potentially powerful piece here. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, it's easy to dismiss at first because, oh, I don't see any concrete threats. The bishop is nice there, but what's it doing? But as this game goes on, it's going to be harder and harder for him to keep this diagonal closed. If you did try to start bringing pieces over to this side of the board, this piece is like, it's... bishops are like ninjas, right? I mean, they're just like, he's just like peering across the board and there's nothing you can do about it. And he's just sitting there waiting for his opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's probably your best long-term solution after d4. Now, when you played bishop g4, things already started getting weird because he should have done what he did next right away. The way he should have dealt with this is by taking e5 right away. And
yeah, I guess because that would have forced me to take his bishop. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have lost a pawn in that, but I would have lost technically on the exchange in an open position because that bishop.
Right. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. If you take here first, you don't lose a pawn, but now you've lost your bishop pair, and now our evaluation of these pawns changes as a real potential weakness, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're isolated.
Yeah, I follow this. This makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So probably that's what he should have. So when he didn't do that and he played h3, the big question for everybody was why did you not take here now then? Because now you're actually just winning a pawn if you take.
Because I'm crazy, and I was anticipating him to push to g4, and I was just going to take it with the knight and then retake with the bishop. And just
okay.
Yeah.
So you played this anticipating that he would be playing g4.
Yeah, and then I was just going to exchange sacrifice and bust open his king and probably not do much else after that.
Well, first of all, that would have been sweet. But second of all, I think probably you just had a more forcing way to get an advantage if you just take here, right?
Yeah. I miss the little things.
All right, so anyway, let's get another game going. I mean, obviously this was kind of a weird, quick one. If we're assessing this position objectively, it seems like you were kind of aware of what happened in the critical things, and you're down a pawn, and strange that he took a draw, but he did, and so I guess we're kind of happy with that, right?
I'm fine with that draw.
All right, let's do it again then. You play 10 minutes again, and let's just buckle up and get ourselves a longer battle.
All right, let's go.
All right, man.
Let's go.
All right, well, here we go. We are into the second game here with Hutch, and we'll go ahead and switch back to the big view, giving the fans at home the biggest possible board experience. And there we go. All right. Well, this is okay. So here we have Hutch is black again somehow, right? So he didn't get the white pieces the second time, but that's okay. And now his opponent is doing something weird, combining both bishop g5 and c4. That's not really normal. So Hutch plays g6 here, which unfortunately is very risky. If white had played e4 in this position, and black tries to deal with the pin, this is going to get tricky. In fact, it looks like his opponent did play e4. So his opponent is taking advantage of the fact that this knight is pinned and there was a threat of e5, so Hutch is forced to put the bishop on e7, which whenever you've moved a pawn around your king side, if you don't have a minor piece that's going to fill that square, that's a pawn move you regret, right? And his opponent recognizes that and plays bishop h6, but the problem is, there's a lot being given up by white here. I mean, there's a pawn on e4 that's just hanging, and let's hope our boy sees it, because, there's really... both sides are being ultra aggressive here, and what we can learn from it is that so this is totally fine for now, but in this position normally e4 right away would be better than playing c4. Going for this threat when you've committed the bishop to pinning the knight, this is a Trumpowski and it's a normal opening, but to play the move that was played in the game with c4 and then go back to e4 is going to be a little overextending for white. Unfortunately for Hutch, he kind of helped that idea to work when he played this extra pawn move g6. This is just too many holes on the king side, too many dark square problems. So better after c4 would have been a number of moves. I mean, even just developing the bishop to e7 right away to pin the knight, these sort of things would have been better as Hutch is getting himself in a little bit of trouble with the idea of g6. Now, what happened over the last few moves, as you guys are all following on the live board, is it looks like when his opponent went for the dark square control, Hutch didn't realize he could have taken this pawn. Instead, played the move d5, and so this position is getting weird. We've got it's probably about equal. It's not a very orthodox position. You can see I'm sort of stuttering there, right? This isn't a very traditional kind of position where you have a very closed pawn chain and white already having such a really strong grip over the dark squares. It's very dangerous for black. But because they got there in such a weird way, black's king isn't committed here. For example, I would be almost more worried if black had already castled somehow and had his king, strangled to these two squares while white is launching an attack. Here, I mean, if he plays moves like knight to c6, very good, right? He's putting pressure on d4. And even a straightforward idea like queen to d7 and gets castled long. The pressure that the queen and bishop are exerting over here on the king side, really not that big of a deal. And Hutch seems to be kind of on his way to realizing that almost by force because, with the bishop on h6, he doesn't have the option to castle whether he'd want to or not. So I like this. I like this approach by Hutch, and bishop g7 I think is a little immature. I mean, obviously Hutch is going to play the most forcing move, rook g8, and likely you're just going to see this bishop have to go back. So, okay, this reroute is unfortunately a lot of smoke, not a lot of actual gunfire there because white just did two moves to trade off a bishop that was probably better than black's bishop. So White's at a bit of a loss. I think his opponent got this pressure on the king's side, was real psyched about all this dark square stuff, and then didn't really have a plan and goes out of his way to waste two moves just to make an exchange. So I like Hutch's chances now, and now what's going to be the theme of this game, and we'll talk about it afterwards, is who's going to properly recognize that the kings are on opposite sides of the board here, so we need to be aggressive with an attack. Probably black's best move is a move like rook f8, if Hutch plays this, followed by moves like f6, and trying to pry open the f-file and create attacking chances on the king side. So rook to f8 would be a move I would like to see Hutch play here, and that's what he did. All right, look at that. He's playing a lot of natural moves. I love it. Okay, so here comes a4. A couple options here. One thing you can do is play the move a5 and just kind of put the kibosh on this whole pawn storm. Every pawn move you make around your king's position is a move that comes with substantial risk. You're opening more holes, diagonals, squares, avenues. So you have to be aware of that. But you have to weigh the good with the bad. In this case, do you really want to deal with the tempo of the next move? Now you got to move the knight. Maybe the pawn drives all the way to a6. Sometimes you can ignore that and just deal with the concrete threats as they come. But I would probably be in favor of either a5 here. F6 is also possible, though, right away because of the tempo it gains on the queen. So normally a5 would be the prophylactic, the defensive idea I'd suggest. But I think f6, because of the tempo it gains on the queen, might go something like this. And white might actually get in trouble before he has time to start gobbling the pieces. So I would be in favor of both those moves from Hutch right now, f6 or a5. I think both of them are totally playable, and that'll work well. So anyway, just checking on the Twitch chat. We got a lot of people here. This is fun. Thanks everybody, all 300 of you for just getting here. Thanks Sella Bethel for being a subscriber to our Twitch channel. Everybody, please subscribe. I hear that's a thing you do on Twitch, or throw us some bits or something. I'm learning about it. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that dumb about it. But yeah, throw us some bits or give us a subscription and get access to some of our chess emotes. I know that's the hottest thing that all the kids talk about. Thanks everybody else. RSK, Asheraz, Yuan223, Freeloader, everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. Of course, everyone, make sure you can check out Hutch's channel too. Go and check out his stream. And we have requested that Hutch keep this show PG when he is on the chess dialogue, but I'm going to apologize in advance if that doesn't happen. So for those of you who are parents watching this show with your kids, definitely the PG version is here on Chess TV, but when Hutch is here, so just be a little careful of that. I mean, sticks and stones may break my bones, right? But words can... what is the phrase there? Anyway, who knows? All right. Yeah, so here we got a rook lift to a3. Hutch played queen to b4, an interesting way to deal with the threat of a5. I'm going to draw a conclusion about Hutch that he's very aware of what his opponent is going to do next, like his thought process in the last game of G4, and obviously he was aware of A5, and so I think his brain quickly goes to stopping his opponent's threats. Sometimes I'm not sure he's always thinking about his most aggressive intentions. Although right as I say that, I realized I was just underestimating the fact that he was threatening to take on D4. So he just goes for that. I think obviously he's going to take back, and the fact that A5 is coming for his opponent, he'll have to play a move like knight to C4, or I guess he could go knight to D7 and come around to E5. So we'll see how he deals with it if his opponent plays A5, and his opponent did, and Hutch played knight to D7. So this is fine. You have to be careful here. Yeah, here comes the knight with tempo, and suddenly you're in a position with the queen where he needs to make the right decision. If he comes back to C5, there may be ideas like rook to C3, skewering the queen and pawn. I think both moves, queen takes B2, as aggressive as that is, and queen takes E5 were probably better than queen to C5. So if his opponent is now fully aware of his tactics, Hutch could be getting in trouble here, despite the fact that he was off to a pretty good start, and I liked his approach. Okay, his opponent doesn't see this opportunity to play rook to C3, at least not in the immediate sense. So if I'm Hutch, I'm wondering, do I just defend this threat, play moves like B6, but then I have to re-deal with this idea all over again? Or do I come up with something complicated here after A6? I mean, one idea is to play knight takes E5, dare I say it. This could get real funky and fresh, right? Takes, you play king to B8. There's pawns hanging, but the queen is hanging. Probably it's good for white, honestly, if he just moves. It looks like I have more permanent issues guarding my king's position than white does with that threat. So likely Hutch doesn't want to take here, which means he's back to either dealing with this obvious threat in a passive way that unfortunately goes right back into what his opponent missed on the last move, or coming up with something else very risky and dynamic. And this kind of happens because there's a balance that happens. There's a shift in the force that happens when you have kings on opposite sides of the board, where the initiative and the ability to create threats becomes slightly more valuable than it normally. You have the ranking, right? Checkmate, large amounts of material, small amounts of material, then piece activity, these things, how you rank the chess advantages, right? But when the kings are on opposite sides of the board, you have a different ranking in terms of the value of the initiative versus material. So when Hutch went for this plan with queen to b4, and his whole idea was to win material, that's great. But as soon as the threats start coming down, right, a5, knight b5, you see the pieces coming to life on the king side, you have to be careful, because without accurate play, you went and gobbled up a pawn, but your opponent's pieces are coming to life around your king. Now, I think he could have gotten away with this. He should have taken another pawn and given up this pawn with check. But I'm not going to be surprised if in a practical sense this is going to get harder and harder for him. And now already you see that when your king is under fire, just from a practical perspective, it's easier to make blunders, because nobody, unless you're a computer, handles king safety as well psychologically as the safety of other pieces. Computers do. Computers don't have that emotional swing where the king is under fire and they lose their cool. So they tend to be able to grab material and defend positions. So again, I would say that I kind of liked my initial suggestion for Hutch instead of queen b4, either put the kibosh on it or emphasize my attack over his. This was fine, but he really needed to be accurate in gobbling these pawns, because white's pieces start to come to life, and unfortunately now he's just forgetting that his queen is hanging. And his opponent forgets that his queen's hanging. All right, so we got a blunderfest, right? Hashtag blunderfest, sign me up. All right, so can you challenge Hutch? Coming in from the UK Geek in the Twitch chat. You can go into chess.com and try to challenge him if you have a similar rating. I'm pretty sure Hutch is just kind of doing an open seek and getting whoever comes to him. I don't think he's got any sort of special, playing subscribers to his channel thing going on. So yeah, I mean, if you want to go challenge him, you can. But appreciate everybody for being here and having fun. Now, Hutch is surviving on the hair on his chin right now because his queen was missed, and yeah, there's some tactics going on here. Hack lover freaking out over the blunders in the chess.com TV chat. Sneaky move also. But thanks everybody for being here. We're analyzing these games. That's why it's called Chess Master Tips, because we're giving tips to non-chess masters from chess masters. So the games are not going to be Nakamura Carlsen, all right? Hashtag deal with it. All right, so he defends with queen to b4. I like that move. And if he gets his next move, knight takes e5, he may be back in business. Yeah, I was just going to say his opponent needs to stop that, but here hopefully Hutch sees that he can take e5, which does two things at once, right? It both attacks the queen, but it also defends the pawn against the double threats of the rook. So let's hope that Hutch calculates accurately and realizes that he has this opportunity, and he does. All right, so this is going to be a fun one, down to the wire. We've got 2.5 minutes for Hutch currently, with 4 minutes for his opponent. 4 minutes and 40 seconds, so wild games with the kings on opposite sides of the board. Definitely going to be some decent lessons to, just for Hutch to kind of keep in mind in terms of bigger picture stuff, and that's what we're here for. That and the free water. I always come for the Kierland free water. I mean, I show up to these chess TV shows, and somehow they always have water for me. It's weird. Okay, jokes aside, that's a good move by his opponent. He's pinning this knight, which means that rook takes c6 is a renewed threat. A couple ways to deal with that. Run the king away to some random square that unpins the knight. I'm not even sure what's better. King to d7 seems to make the most sense, despite the fact that it allows a check. Or bishop d7. All right, we'll take it, right? So Hutch recognizes the knight is pinned and goes out of his way to defend it, and he is in this game. Take back a queen blunder from a couple moves ago, and we're surprised that we're analyzing this position, right? But that's a good move right there. That is a good move right there. Checking over on the Twitch chat. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Remember, Hutch is also providing commentary over at his channel, and the group post-mortem is taking place on both of ours. You can only find my analysis of the game right here on this channel while Hutch is playing. All right, so f4 is played to kick the knight, but that allows knight takes d3. Now, he better be aware of a discovered check. His opponent shouldn't play that right away because the knight could go right back. So now Hutch has some decisions to make. I think that, okay, he chooses to stop this threat, which, again, I think Hutch is very aware of his opponent's next move. That's a skill that, honestly, a lot of people just, don't develop, right? He's very defensive-minded. But being accurate and defensive-minded is another thing, and I wonder now if... Now, he needs to be aggressive if he's going to get back in this game. Queen to b6 check is one move that I was considering, because if you had played this move and the knight blocks the check, you get to win the rook for free. And if the knight doesn't block the check, if he moves the king, you actually get to win this pawn, maybe. Although there's some weird and funky combinations. So maybe Hutch is a genius and he calculated all that. So instead, he goes for queen takes b2. The rook comes to c5, and now we get rook e8. Okay, so he's keeping the dream alive. He's now slowly unwinding his pieces, who sort of became useless over here once the attack was all about white's pressure. The reason I was recommending queen b6, and I'm just going to go back to that now just so we can keep that in mind, is this knight is so irritatingly advanced and dangerous here that I want to get rid of its protector, the a6 pawn. So I keep thinking of, how can I bring the queen back and deal with this and try to start undermining this pony's position. It's possible. Uh-oh, queen d6 check coming. Owie. Owie, 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 owie. I don't think he saw that. Ouchtown. Population Hutch. That was a big, big mistake right there. And so his last real chance to be in this game was to see queen d6 check coming and do the same idea, but put the rook on e6 and then double and continue along the lines he was getting himself back in. But after queen to d6, uh-oh. Yeah, and just like that, the flag falls. And with that, I'm going to grab the game and prepare for our analysis here.
Oof, that was tough. That was a tough one.
Tough one.
I blundered my queen, but I got lucky because he didn't see it.
Yeah, no, we were going nuts over here, hoping he wouldn't see it, and we got our wish. All right, well, that was an interesting one, right?
Sure.
I mean, a little different than the. A little different than the first one, so let's dive into the game here.
Yes.
Let's see. So okay, first of all, there was some weird stuff out of the opening. He played bishop g5. Have you faced that before?
Probably, but it's not something I feel like I face a lot.
Yeah, it's So the opening is the Trompowsky, but he didn't really play it like a Trompowsky. Normally they're willing to give up the bishop here early to get a big center. But what he did was he played c4 next. So that's not normal to play on the queen side and to put the bishop here. And I think, we were speculating that might have thrown you off a little bit. You played the move g6, and the issue here is that almost never is this the right idea to combine, a potential fianchetto of the bishop with an open center of the bishop, because, you're creating this potential problems on the dark squares, right?
Yeah, I basically immediately after pushing e6, I was like, what? Or g6, I was like, what am I doing right there?
Right. It just. So, I mean, the simplest thing to do if your opponent is playing with the chance to give up the bishop pair is sometimes it's just to call their bluff and play a move like h6 and see if they're ready to give it up. And, one of the best parts about getting the bishop pair early rather than later is you instantly have a strategical goal for the rest of the game. You now have 2 bishops. He only has 1, which means all openings of every dark square is more advantageous to you than it is for them.
Yeah.
And so, there's different plans in this Trompowsky where sometimes black has played aggressively for c5 and try to expose the lack of a bishop on the queen side. Sometimes black has played moves like g5 and just, put a queen and bishop battery together to work on the dark squares. And then even if you built up a slow plan like d6 and e5 or c5, in a lot of games it's not often, like, we know our openings, but not often do you have like sort of a strategical advantage that you can immediately start to leverage.
Yeah, especially on like move 3.
Yeah, and so I would just say, like, keep that in mind. Against bishop g5, I think, the main line, actually, e6 is okay. And usually after e4, that's actually kind of very similar to what happens. Black plays h6. Now they kind of have to take, because if they don't, you'll win the pawn. And this sort of position here is a very kind of typical Trompowsky, where white's got a big center, black's got the dark square bishop, and the battle is on.
Okay, all right, okay.
So with g6, it just... now you're in a position where you've got bad decisions to make, right? One poison is go here, and you're like, okay, well, that's no longer an option because he's pinned my knight.
Yep.
Or what you did, which was the best move, but, then immediately, you're feeling the absence of your bishop over here.
Yeah.
Did you realize that after bishop h6, you could have just gobbled up this pawn here?
No, I was just playing too fast. I rushed the
Okay.
openings, and I missed, like, stupid pawn grabs like that.
Yeah, no, and it's hard because, especially in the last move, one of the things that happens tactically in our brain is the last move, a move is played, and it's a big no-no. Like, you can't take here because, the queen. And so then something changes in the details of the position, and we don't always recalibrate and check those tactics. And
exactly, yeah.
My
mind
so
was just like, can't move that knight. Just can't
right,
move it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Your mind is already it's like a preconceived thing. So that's just something that the more when you're, chess players like me who've already, I've screwed up so many times, like you get a certain jadedness about your own thought process where you're always in self-doubt.
Yeah.
and so it makes it easier to always double check those lines. And like, oh, last move I considered this was bad, but I'm always in self-doubt about myself because I blunder all the time. And so I recheck things. And so, jokes aside, I think you have to just develop that muscle of never taking that for granted so you don't miss tactics.
Sure, yeah. Reevaluate.
Reevaluate. So, all right. So you played d5. We missed this chance to win the pawn, and now you guys made a number of moves quickly. Good move here. You defend the pawn. He brings the queen out. You develop. This was all like okay. A lot of these moves now start making a lot of sense after the weird opening.
That was my feeling too. Was like, okay, well, I feel like I got out of that. I'm gonna castle on the queen side soon and get out of there.
Right, and that's awesome. That's exactly what we were hoping you would do, and you went for this and castled queenside. This plan by him was kind of bogus. We commented on, he goes out of his way to waste 2 moves just to trade off a bishop when probably his bishop is better than yours. So kind of a weird plan, but we're okay with that.
Yeah, I was fine with that exchange.
And now, so how quickly? What was your thought process here? Because I'm only asking because in order for us to get more out of the our goal in analyzing every game is not just to kick ourselves, but where can the patterns apply for future games? And what was your instant thought process the moment these kings are on opposite sides of the board and you're assessing what your plan needs to be?
Well, it usually just becomes a race, like who can push their pawns faster to the king. And my feeling was that I didn't see any clear advantage for either player. Like it felt like a pretty even position. But I don't know. Are you sitting on something? Did I miss some tactic here?
No, I think I wanted to ask that because you're right. That's exactly what it should be. And you started that plan with rook d to f8. to play f6, right?
Yeah.
And then he played a4, and so the observation I feel like we know each other a little better now, so I'm gonna make an observation about your chess. Is that cool?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna.
You don't have to hold back. Yeah, go.
No,
for it.
I know. I'm kidding. I don't think you think I do. I don't. But I'm gonna be like. So here's what I've noticed about a lot of your games, and you're in a good way. Your strength is that you're very reactive to your opponent. Like every move they make, you're recognizing their next threat. And so like I could already see you went into the think tank here, and you thought for a couple of minutes and came up with your best way to kind of stop this plan and to be aggressive. And I think that in general, I'm going to show you a few other moments in this game where I felt like you also did the same thing, where I could tell you were putting your opponent's threats, like you were putting them high, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think that, nothing can overcome accurate calculation. And as much as the first instinct wants to be, okay, I have to deal with his threat, you have to also calculate based on the position and see and make sure you're not missing opportunities. Because the moment you start committing to this side of the board, no matter what move it is, the moment you start committing to being on the defensive, every move for the next 15 moves was played on this side of the board, right here, the queen side. Yeah. So even with small amounts of material going your way, you're in a position where they have the initiative and you don't. And that just, first of all, just from a practical perspective, what happens in those kinds of games? We're the ones who spend more time. We're the ones most likely to blunder because when your king is under attack, we're not a computer, right? Yeah. And it's hard to play chess when the opponent has the initiative. So my biggest fear was that you were going to commit to this side of the board, and it's kind of what happened. So I had two other suggestions. One was just if you calculate accurately, you can just follow up on your move and just play f6.
Yeah, I was thinking that just now as you were talking. I'm like, what happens if I just push f6 right now? Because he doesn't.
Right. I mean, the discovered threat that's kind of key, right? So all this now the tables could turn, right? If he takes, you're the one who takes with the tempo, and then maybe you continue to do things over here. Where okay, like even if he gets all of these moves, okay, this may not be ideal, but I wanted to point out that. If he does all of this, like he hasn't really opened up any new avenues yet, and you've got a lot more chances over here than you did in the game.
Yeah.
But the other thing to do here that maybe is even better than f6, but doesn't fully commit your pieces, is actually just a5.
I thought about that too, and then I thought I looked at that for a second, but I didn't really calculate too far.
The only reason I like it, even though I hate making moves on the side of my king when I want to be the one doing it to them, is this move really does kind of put the kibosh on all avenues, right? I mean, the A file is now stuck in stone. The B move is just not an option. I mean, you'll take with the knight and you're fully anchored in there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So this is a move that becomes really hard to see white's follow up. And now, because we already established that f6 is coming with a tempo because of the discovery, now f6 is like looming, right? And white is worried about it. So the mindset, I think the reason I asked those questions about the castle's position and what were you thinking is because I just wanted to come back to something I know you already understand, but take it to the next level, which is, when the kings on opposite sides of the board, it becomes all about pawn moves and sort of racing, but really it just changes the balance and the force. Like when the kings are on opposite sides of the board, normally we have this hierarchy in chess. At the top of the pyramid is checkmate. At number 2 is large amounts of material that we're winning, right? Number 3 would be small amounts of material. But when you get positions like this, the initiative, kind of takes on a more dynamic value than small amounts of material. And so, and so anytime you can crush their initiative and then get back to your plans, that's good. Anytime you can put your initiative first.
And by initiative, for people that are beginners chess, you can interchange that word with tempo. So any kind of move that your opponent makes that you have to respond to, they have tempo or they have the initiative. Either one of those works. So I do a lot of a chess series with other masters, and they call it tempo. So I didn't want anybody to get confused there.
Oh no, yeah, that's totally true, and maybe I should. A tempo move, and one way to think of the big three is check, captures, tempo moves, and for those who are less advanced, what that means is a check. It normally always requires a response, right? It doesn't mean every check is good, but a check attacks the king, so that's kind of the top of a tempo move. Then a capture. Normally, when you're capturing a piece, very often it forces a recapture or it's a powerful move. And then the third thing, a tempo move, is whenever you attack, the literal definition is anytime you attack a greater valued piece with a lesser valued piece. So a tempo move is a pawn on a knight, a piece that's worth 1 for 3, or a a rook on a queen, a piece that's worth 5 and a piece that's worth 10, or sorry,
Yep.
9.
Yep.
All right, so anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and sorry for going on and on, but I like providing I just think that this is kind of where things got a little bit off track, and this was actually fine for you. I mean, you won this pawn. I don't know why he played. I think rook a3 in hindsight was probably not his best, but either way, you won this pawn, which was okay, but it also opened up this storm where every move from here on out was a tempo move by white. It was like tempo move. He already had an opportunity for a winning tempo move that he didn't see, which would have been rook to c3.
Yeah, I didn't want him to make that. I even said, I'm like, if he makes that, I'm in trouble right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna suck.
But even what he did, I guess, so he played another. This is also kind of a tempo move, right? It's not the literal sense because it's pawn on pawn crime.
Yeah.
But it does open up avenues to the king, and then another tempo move. So like now we're at like 5 or 6 moves in a row of that definition I gave of tempo moves, which is just a game changer in terms of. So let's say even Hutch got up, right, and the strongest computer in the world sat down here. If that happens, the strongest computer in the world doesn't look at this position with the emotion of, holy shenanigans, my king is open and there's all kinds of danger coming. They just play emotionless chess. But no human can play these positions without freaking out, right? I mean, because your king is under fire.
Yeah, it was a tough position. I was not feeling good at this point. Well, let's jump into another game so we have
let's do it.
Like a fresh farm of games here.
Awesome.
But yeah, if you want to just kind of like what you've done the last couple of games, just find the position where it was like the most crucial moment and then explain why the tide turned. Then I think that's perfect. I think the last couple analyses went great. Here, I'm just gonna.
All right, homie. You're gonna get the white pieces now. Go get them.
For sure, I'm gonna get them.
I mean, you should. I mean, you've gotten a couple blacks in a row, so you should.
All right.
Did you?
Let's
All right,
do
man,
this.
see ya. All right, peeps, we're back. Hutch is white, and he's got a Dutch. Say what? Got the Dutch. Oh, he didn't play my favorito, Holmes. My favorito is the burrito. A burrito is about a burrito and pizza combine things that are great, right? You get veggies and meat and like cheese, all kinds of stuff in one thing. So, like, let's have a vote in the chat, please. Burrito or pizza? Better meal. Give me a vote, and we're going to give away a diamond membership. Seriously. Whoever gives me the best argument for burrito or pizza for most portable, most awesome combination of just food together. Now, this position, my favorito, is to play the move e4, which is a very principled opening to pry open access to the light squares. This is the Staunton Gambit, and I just loves me some Staunton. So we're going to come back to this with Hutch, and I'm going to give him a recommendation to play that. But he didn't. And what we've got here is now a stone wall. So this is interesting. We've got okay, how do I want to provide the context of this? So first, going back to this position, this is great. This is a Dutch, and so far okay. Whenever black plays e6, they're clearly threatening to play the stone wall. Usually, what you want is more and more control over the light squares so that you can be the one in charge of prying open these squares, not letting them get kind of the position that black gets in this game. So several moves here that are common. Bishop g5, how does that control the light squares? Well, it gets rid of the knight, and that knight guards the light squares. G3, obviously a move that brings a piece to the light squares, right? I already said that even the super aggressive moves like e4, and believe it or not, another move in this position is g4. That's right, g4 is actually not a bad move here because if they take, tell me you don't love seeing this, right? Shenanigans, right? And if they take with the knight, you also play e4, and there's just a lot of weird stuff going on here where black is often very worried about what's going to happen with the light square. So that's like theory to keep in mind in terms of you're facing a Dutch, I need to control the light squares, this is my plan, now you have more advice, you're welcome. In this game, black kind of gets what he normally wants, which is a super duper grip over the central light squares. But honestly, now the way that he's playing it, meaning black is not doing what he needs to do. B6 was really kind of a bogus move. What black needs to be doing here is moves like knight e7 and then c6 and anything he can do to kind of further create this anchor of light squares. That even leads to long-term plans like, can you say attack on the king side because the center's closed? This bishop remaneuvering over here is a plan. Black has all kinds of ideas in the Dutch that help them attack on the king side because they really own the light squares in the center. B6 is a move that B6 is a move that, first of all, is bringing the bishop to the wrong area of the board, and secondly, it actually creates these open squares here where suddenly I really like Hutch's plan take, and I'm hoping he follows it with the move c4. Darn it, he didn't. c4 would have been a phenomenal move here. Let me just ask you, what does black do? Having an understanding of how valuable prying open these light squares are for the future, when I tell him this in the post-mortem, that will already make him better against this, because now he'll see the c4 tactics and know that it works, because strategically he has this justification. Oh, I know I'm supposed to open the light squares. That's what I'm going to do. So c4 is what he should do here. And I mean, look at it. First of all, takes just loses a piece, because that's a fork, right? If you defend the pawn, I'm just going to take it no matter what. I'm just prying open these light squares and doing everything I can to get avenues to the king. So c4 really would have been what the doctor ordered. He played h3 and then c4, so not bad, but already one tempo shorter. Just that one move behind has made black's position so much easier. Right now, the king is guarded on the diagonal because of the bishop. All of these things are in place. So this is interesting stuff. And now I still like Hutch's chances, because I still feel like black has gone on the wrong track here. The light squares are becoming open. Yes, that's a very good move by Hutch. Now the next move, probably no matter what, he should look to take here, play bishop c4, and just continue to pound away at the original weakness black created when black played f5. Other moves to consider will be moves like using these e5 and g5 squares, but I see no reason to not either take here or play the move rook to c1, which also just sort of builds up on the fact that eventually this dam is going to break and white is going to pry things open. Look at Hutch here. He plays rook fc1. I'll take it. I'm so proud of this guy. He's doing so good. He plays a4, but no big deal. Just back up the queen, and we should be right back in a position where black has to deal with the scenario of the light squares will eventually break and the tactics will favor white because of the awkward open squares here. That's also not a bad move. I was expecting the queen to just stay on this battery here, but it gains a tempo, which means that now this move should be even stronger. If you take on d5, the only move is bishop takes, because you're also attacking the knight, so bishop takes is forced. And several moves to consider, including bishop c4, which, by the way, if he plays bishop c4, black really has trouble, because almost any move he makes, white has a double attack again, and white's winning a piece. So this, as long as Hutch keeps the light squares open, he's going to be in good shape. And, oh no, right as I said that, c5. So white is still going to be better here, because black has really not done enough to do what black needs to do on the king side in the Dutch. And if he takes here, the c file probably still favors him, but this game just got much closer to equal than it was before, because now all of these potential weaknesses for black are no longer on the table. So when we come back to that critical moment, it's going to be really right here in terms of not just this exact position, but how he handled the critical tactics surrounding the light squares or how he didn't handle them well. So that's unfortunate. Let's see what he should do. I think he should still probably take it. No, so he's worried about tactics. Again, Hutch is very, very aware of his opponent's next move, and I think he sometimes puts their immediate threats higher than accurately calculating his own aggressive possibilities. And I've seen that a few times now and seen enough games of his that I feel like that's a fair statement. So this should be interesting. I want to tell everybody that over here on twitch.tv/chess, right after this show, we will be building into the a material odds challenge with the only Amon Hambleton. So my show's probably going to run over a little bit, and Amon will be able to jump right in the moment I'm done. I'm not sure how long Hutch wants to go here. I don't think much longer, but likely it'll go. Likely I'll be rocking here till probably about 2:30 Pacific time. And then we'll hand things over to Amon, and he can build on that audience and roll right into the Material Odds Challenge, where he takes on members at significant odds and provides commentary and advice along the way. So it's a lot of fun. All right, so this game has gotten much more down the road of, excuse me, the water and lunch. It's gone much more down the road of the kind of thing black wants in the Dutch, and it's really getting away from Hutch now, because he's losing this c pawn. The b pawn is really strong, and so I'm I'm not happy at all with the general direction of where that position went. And it all happened because of this approach with c5 versus c takes d5. I mean, really, everything about the lack of knowing that was really what he wanted to do, and there was so much potential there, is getting him in trouble right now. So, okay, I know I need to check on these burrito versus pizza arguments, because, I think I'm making the case for the burrito to be the most compact, portable, powerful meal. A lot of people choose pizza over burrito, I'm seeing in the Twitch chat. What about Chess TV chat? What do we got? We got pizza with burrito toppings. Interesting. Most people seem to like pizza. Wow, I'm surprised. Burrito, Holmes. Burrito. So yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun to see. But I'm going with burrito. So I don't agree with you guys. Burrito town. All right. Well, interesting. So he gets black to open up his king. I mean, that's a plus, right? That's a plus for sure, because the potential of the dark squares being weak is really going to decide whether or not he gets himself back in this game. Unfortunately, black should still be winning. I mean, this is a powerful, powerful pass pawn. I mean, that is an advanced pawn on b3 with seriously bad intentions. The knight's coming to a4, which is going to force the queen to move, and then the pawn's going to push, and we've got some problems here. So, what can Hutch do to create aggressive counterplay quickly? That's a good question. Maybe bring the rook to c1, something like this. Allow this pawn to get a little further. And then, okay, he puts the rook on b1, it looks like, which is, yeah, not ideal. Okay, but he gets the queen into f6. So, honestly, he maybe even could have considered that last move. Me like it, yeah. I like it. He's actually posing some really hard questions for black, and I wasn't really calculating accurately. I admit I was starting to become distracted by the show scheduling here, because we need to figure out Amon and my piggybacking here. But yeah, I think queen f6 was immediately probably possible, not here, but the moment that knight moved, right? And the good that he's getting it now, how does it become something concrete? That'll be interesting to see. I think you can consider sacrificing and just blowing this thing open. You can also consider bishop d3 to put the bishop here first. That might be best. And hold the sacrifice until you get more pieces kind of in their position. h4, another move for sure. For sure, this is another idea. Okay, queen f6 makes sense. And unfortunately for Hutch, trading queens gets closer to an endgame where this b pawn is probably going to tell the story. He's doing it because of the forcing chance to get this pawn. But okay, his opponent should have just ignored that and played b2. And here comes knight c3, and we have a whole rook hanging. So they're both a little bit caught up right now on the tactics on the king's side. And now his opponent has gone all in with a piece sacrifice to get b2. So not the best technique there from black, right? I mean, black's pawn on the b file and the threats of b2 were not going anywhere. So doing it after you, instead of just like taking back the knight, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And now Hutch is getting himself right back in the game. That's a phenomenal move. And the key thing he calculated there is that with the bishop coming to e5, he actually prevents the move knight to c3. Suddenly white is winning. The game just flipped. Hutch down and out really should be, in for the count. Now he's winning. And that's what happens with miscalculation. Now look, now he's playing really well. Bishop to d1. I feel like as the gloves come off and the time gets shorter, he trusts his intuition a little more, and he becomes a little bit less worried about his opponent's threats. I mean, that's just kind of my psychological assessment of what he's doing right and wrong. Now he just needs to play one last accurate move, which he finds, and the game is pretty much over. He's going to win. He's up 2 bishops. The pawn is falling. And he's going to get one. He's going to get a big win, right? For the fans here in the chat, we've been sticking by him with a couple of losses, and now he's going to get a win. Just checking on the chat. Yeah, fans are going nuts. Way to go, Hutch. Yeah, black blundered pretty hard, lukewarm, and that's true. But it's also Also, credit there for him to stay in the game and to be in that position. So, still going to be the most critical moment coming out of the transition of how the light squares were handled, or not handled properly. Excuse me, but good win nonetheless, assuming he pulls this off without anything horribly terrible happening here. And it looks like he's on his way to doing that. He's going to go get a Queenie Poo, and that should be everything the body needs, the queen. Black is trying to come up with a creative stalemate here. You can just see his wheels ticking. He's trying to come up with a creative stalemate that just doesn't exist because the queen is coming with check, good sir. And guess what? In this position, the queen is coming with checkmate. That's pretty hilarious, right? We'll even ring the bell. How often do you get to promote for a checkmate?
Why do people make me play it out? I don't understand, Daniel.
I don't know. He was going for a creative checkmate. I just gave you a bell ring, though, buddy. You checkmated him. You rung his bell.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
I do that on my show. Whenever you get checkmate, you ring a bell. I got a little bell here.
That's very satisfying, actually.
Yeah, it really is. Believe it or not, it makes me feel good. Well, good game, first of all.
Yeah, that was a good game. I enjoyed that one.
Not very often you get to promote for checkmate, so also congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And let's go ahead and jump in. I think the biggest, the big critical moment is really clear, and it's not just one position, but kind of several moves in an idea. So let me go ahead and grab the PGN.
All right. I'm going to eat my stir fry delicious stir fry, I might add.
So one of the things you do on Twitter is you tweet about the meals that you're making. When did you start doing that?
When I started to learn how to cook, like every obnoxious millennial, I think.
Yeah. You started to learn how to cook and you had to film it. That's right. At least you take pictures of the process, though. At least you're not, hey, I'm eating cereal with like no creative thought, right? It's just the
process is like half the. I actually really enjoy cooking, so like it's fun. It's fun for me to just walk down to the market and put some shit together, some stuff together, some things together.
Put some things together. That's right. All right. Well, here we go. So you face the Dutch. First of all, I don't know how often you face a Dutch with F5.
A fair amount.
Okay. So then it's cool that I'm going to give you this advice then, because the critical thing to know about the Dutch is the way you beat the Dutch, no matter what, is at some point is an aggressive prying open of the light squares. Usually it involves the E pawn, but it can also involve what happened in your game, which is the C pawn sort of prying open avenues to the king this way. You had a position where there was a lot of tension built up with the pawns here sort of staring each other down, and I'm going to show you that you had several kind of opportunities. But regardless of the X's and O's of this game, because exact positions rarely repeat for any of us, but the idea that will repeat is that the light squares are the key to sort of punishing this opening. I mean, the light squares here have been exposed voluntarily by your opponent, and it's your job to punish them for such an offense. In fact, so much so, I'm going to prove to you just how dangerous the light squares are. That two of the most popular weapons against the Dutch are E4 immediately. This is the Staunton Gambit, a personal favorite of mine. And I'm going to just show you a quick line. So after natural moves, you go here and you take, and you're thinking, oh, well, what if they just defend the pawn? Black is just losing on the spot. You have Queen H5 check. You win the pawn back, and that's
scary.
And then you end up winning this pawn. So white ends up being up a pawn. The same trick occurs after E4 takes. If they guard with the knight and you play bishop G5 and they play D5, the same thing can occur. You can take and Queen H5 check and do the same thing. So that's just like a little series of tactics. Another move that's really popular for white against the Dutch is G4. Here you're sacrificing, instead of sacrificing the center for access to the diagonals, you're actually sort of sacrificing the diagonals for control over the center. And then you're going to go get the light squares this way.
That's cool.
So I'm not like into recommend. I mean, everybody has their own chess, and I don't want to put my own spin on I think one is best or not. I think it's actually a mistake a lot of coaches do when they say, oh, one way is the best way. Well, you know what? Really, it's very often not true. There are a lot of ways to play against a lot of different openings, and more important is to understand kind of the ideas. But I just wanted to show you those lines because that should really cement home that, wow, if some of the most popular weapons that people play, even grandmasters, are sacrificing this aggressively to get the light squares, then I better be thinking about the light squares for the entire middle game because that's clearly a justifiable strategy.
Yeah, I like that.
So in the game you played c4, knight f6. This is fine. And what I highlighted for the fans is that even if you're not playing my Staunton Gambit or the aggressive g4 or whatever, all of your moves need to have control over these squares on the top of your agenda. So the issue with bishop f4 is, rather than a move that increases your control over the light squares, the bishop is sometimes useless here. So other moves that are better example, bishop g5 is a move that increases control of the light squares, albeit indirectly because you're getting rid of a knight who controls these squares, but that's still a very common move. G3 is a move that controls the light squares because you're clearly putting a piece on its most useful diagonal for the future. Also, this is also a very popular system. In fact, Vladimir Kramnik, right, former world champion, he always preferred more strategical systems like this against the Dutch, and then a slow play of moves like e4 and d5 rather than the aggressive e4 that I was suggesting. So those are all moves that would have been a little more natural to this overall theme that we're kind of highlighting. Now, I want to skip past the rest, because after that, these are great. You develop your pieces, everybody does what's natural for them, and we get kind of a typical middle game position here where
I'm not in this position like hundreds of times. Like this exactly.
Okay.
I feel like I have.
Okay, well, first of all, that's an awesome thing to know, and now hopefully taking in some of the advice I've given you, you will get it a little differently. I mean, just one change, if you don't want to go with my aggressive stuff, just play bishop g5 from now on and make it that much harder for them to control the light squares. Number two, look into a little bit of theory here and look into some of this stuff. Or really, I mean, if I was really recommending a system, I would say that if you're not going to go for an aggressive line like the Staunton, learn to play g3 just against the Dutch, with the very straightforward intentions of trying to play on the light squares for the rest of the middle game.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So let's get what you got, and yeah, if you're getting this position a lot in the middle game, then you know that the advantage Black has gotten here is, because we didn't pry open these squares or take an approach that aggressively challenged them, Black kind of has what he wants here. He's got this super over-controlled space, and he's got e4, and he's got a pony on it, and he's happy in that sense. What he should have done to continue along that plan was play the move knight e7 to support this, and then no matter what you do pretty much on the next move, play the move c6. I mean, okay, if you take, he'll take back, but the point is, if you do something, he's going to play c6 and try to create this opportunity where he's not going to blink about his grip on the center. That's what he should have been doing. When he played b6, he's really he's creating an identity crisis for himself. The bishop doesn't belong over here. The bishop belongs over here in the Dutch. The bishop belongs even with crazy plans like this. Like if he played this, and let's say you did something, one plan for Black that happens a lot in the Dutch is here, here, here. The bishop comes all the way over, and they just slowly bring the kitchen sink to the king side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a weird thing for him to try and fianchetto on that side, and I actually kind of got like locked into the idea of just locking that off.
Right.
So that's why I ended up just pushing my pawns the way that I did, because I just didn't want to let his bishop do it. But then he ended up just putting his bishop on d7 anyways, like a couple moves later or something.
Everything you did after b6. So I wanted to talk about the opening there. Okay, now we've established the light square control strategy of the Dutch. You're gonna do that differently from now on, and that's whenever you're analyzing your games, I offer two pieces of advice to students / aspiring chess players is if you're gonna just establish two things out of every game you play, do this. One, establish the first mistake you made if you can, because as much as all that opening talk I gave and the strategy on the light squares or whatever seems general, believe it or not, that's actually the thing you have the most power to control the very next time you face this opening, right? The thing that you have the most power to change is really the first mistake you make in a chess game, not the most decisive mistake you make in a chess game.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
Maybe it's not the deciding mistake, but if you just do the math and you play 100 chess games where you actually took the time to establish the first moment where you kind of went on the wrong course, now you've built up a pyramid, right? You've built a lot of muscles of all of a sudden you're playing a position on move 15, you're in theory, and you're not, and you're doing it the right way instead of making mistakes earlier. So always take the time to establish the first mistake you make in a game. And then the second thing you should do is always take the time to establish the last mistake that was made by either you or your opponent. I say the term last mistake that was made is because it may not be specific to you. Make sure you know, though, why X, Y, and Z lost the game. Like what was the final move that, that jumped the shark for either me or the other guy?
That's the time-consuming part of chess, because you're
Yes.
like
No,
it
you're right.
takes longer to play these games. It takes even longer to analyze them sometimes.
Right, it does. And all right, so let's get to the last critical moment, then we'll decide if we have any more in us or if we're taking our tips. So this was great. When you got C4, I was super happy. But what I wanted to highlight is if everything I said about the light squares was true, then really here you have another chance at redemption. If you had played C4 aggressively here, it's actually very tough for him to deal with this. The sooner this diagonal gets pried open, the sooner the tactics will favor you, because his king is sitting on the diagonal and your king isn't. And
Yeah. Well, yeah.
so how does he deal with this, actually? By the way,
I was obviously looking at that, but for some reason in my mind, I'm like, I'm just gonna play a waiting move, get my king an out, get my bishop an out in case he does some weird push on the king side later, and then see what he does. That was my thought.
well, now you know. Now you know the light squares are critical, so you will make these moves work in the future. And I think that sometimes having a strategical thing in understanding actually improves our tactics, because sometimes we don't know what to make work. Like, we're not looking for C4 because, you don't know whether you should be emphasizing the light squares over getting your king a space, right? You don't know, because this isn't a position you know well. So now all of a sudden you're that much more strategically knowledgeable, and so the next time you have a chance to say, well, do I need to play a waiting move or do I need to strike? You're going to be like, well, I know the light squares are critical, and I actually see that the opportunity to do it now is even better than it will be in a few moves, because I need to strike before he gets developed and kind of deals with these potential weaknesses.
Yeah, looking at the position now, when I'm not in the game, I can see that C4 is a pretty good move, but I don't know. I always try to get too creative sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, no, that's the obvious move. Let's do something a little bit more sneaky.
Right. So you played C4. Your position was still good every move, and if you check the post-game videos or whatever of the things I was saying during the games, you'll see every move I was just coming back to this and really hoping that you were going to blow this open and trade. And A5, A3 was good. And Rook C1 was good. All these moves were good, but every move for the last several moves, there's been this option, and at some point, you're going to need to break through there. And to really show, even here, if you had taken and he takes, and if you just play this move, just play Bishop C4 and offer a trade.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
He doesn't have any good options, because again, you've opened an area of the board where he's potentially weaker than you.
What about just knight back to F6 for him?
That may be his best, but now we're on the initiative. Right now you're building up. Here comes more pieces.
Ooh,
like you're gonna build up on this thing, and it's a game of chicken, and he's gonna blink first, because
I see that
he doesn't have any good options.
Yeah.
Almost always, if the tactics are opening up diagonals toward their king and not yours, like probably you want to go for this. Just, I know that sounds like a super general thing to say, like open files and diagonals facing their king versus yours, but if you just think about it, I mean, obviously that's where tactics happen. And again, even if you don't see something concrete, this opening this position was what you wanted to do, not keep it closed. So you played Queen B5. I still was happy with these moves, and this was really the last chance where you could have taken and played for our combination Bishop C4. Even here, by the way, I think he might be losing material. He can't take because you take with check, which is just a fork, a double attack.
Yep.
If he moves this knight to try to defend, you're winning the queen. It's very difficult. I mean, if he blocks with any sort of rook, you take with check and then win the knight. So I mean, it's a simple position with natural moves, but it's very, very difficult for black.
Yeah,
probably his only move is this.
I can see that pretty clearly now. Yeah.
Actually, wait, no. Even that loses a piece. You just take with check and win the knight. So yeah, I'm even underestimating it myself. Yeah, it looks like it's because I'm carrying over what my mindset while you're playing is kind of teacher mode. So I was just highlighting. Sure. I knew this was good, but I honestly hadn't even calculated this concretely yet. But yeah, it looks like you're just winning material.
Yeah, I liked my rook to C1 move. I knew that file was going to open. I knew that rook was going to be important on that file.
No, that was perfect, actually. And that actually shows maturity and experience, because I'm sure you could say in your younger chess days, as soon as people have chances to take, they just always trade. Like, you would have traded here for the wrong reasons, right?
Probably.
Because people just love taking pieces when they first learn the game.
Yeah.
This move shows maturity because you understand that at some point the tension's going to break here, and you want to have more pieces in the right position to do something nasty than they have. So that was good. And so everything was good really up until this move. And once this move is played, the whole game changes, because you lose all these tactical opportunities that were occurring with this. And and suddenly his grip on the light squares becomes something that you really can't undo. I mean, he's back in control.
Yeah, as soon as he moved his rook over to that b file, I was like, I feel like I'm losing my edge here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you backed up the queen. Probably you still should have taken first and then backed up the queen. And just because in this case you don't end up with the weak pawn you did here, whereas in the game, as you remember, you backed up and then he took, same sort of thing, but he has this target now where and the c file's closed, whereas at least in this position we have the c file. So that's just a small thing, but I don't want
Sure.
So we've gone into that. Really, all the things we're learning about this game that are going to help you in the future, man, are everything we've talked about regarding the light squares. That is just going to change your game in the Dutch.
All right, well,
So everything else was really, you were on the defensive, but now you played really well given the circumstances. And when he got overly aggressive with the king side, you saw your opportunity on the dark squares and you took it.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, go ahead.
Probably you could have played queen f6 even right away, the moment he took, but I know you had that in mind because you went for it and really that helped a lot.
Yeah. And then I don't know, he made some stupid mistake over here and like dropped a piece or something.
Yeah, he starts defending. Trading queens was a smart idea by him because obviously this b pawn is a serious problem. But you did the right thing in eventually you were able to make the trade that brought the bishop back here to defend.
Yeah.
Probably if we had it to over, maybe even going for that kind of right away. If you make a trade and find a way to get this bishop in a really useful position that can kind of save your day. Where he messed up was he just let himself get so focused on this that he was forgetting an obvious truth, which is that now that he's not getting checkmated with the queens off the board, every move you make over here is kind of irrelevant to what's going on over here.
Yeah.
I mean, so once he got the queens off, he should have just played b2 and brought down the hammer.
Oh, he had that move that whole time, didn't he?
Well, not exactly, right? Because when your queen was on the board, I mean, he's in a... Okay, he can do this, but now you're taking, and now you might checkmate him, right? I mean, so I think you did the right thing to get the initiative, and he did the right thing by at least respecting it enough to try to trade queens. But the moment the queens came off, now instead of taking back as he did and giving you all these checks, this is where he needed to remember and be like, okay, what is this, right?
Why didn't he just swing his knight over to
c3?
To c3 right away?
Agreed. Yeah, knight c3 is also good. I think I was suggesting b2 first because this is really hard, not really easy to stop. But I agree. This is just as good.
Yeah, you kind of blundered the end game there. All right, well, let's try and get one more game in here because I got to do something. I got to do something at 3, so I'll give you one.
All right, we'll get one more. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, everybody. Don't go anywhere. One more game, and we're rolling right from this into a material odds with Amon Hambleton. Gonna be fun. All right. Waiting for Hutch to start. Not quite yet. And checking in on everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got a lot of people who are wondering where's Amon. You're right. It was on the schedule, and I'm really sorry. I kind of jumped ahead of Amon and wanted to do this with Hutch because we don't have the opportunity to do it that often. But stick around if you've got a free afternoon or evening. You're just getting more and more chess, right? Now we're about to roll right into this with material odds. In fact, extra time for everybody to know how they can get involved in Amon's show. Go to chess.com. Free membership. I don't know what his criteria is these days. If you got to say you love his beard, or if you got to be like, "Oh, Amon, I love you," right? Take off your shirt. I don't know what Amon does these days to get his fans to play, but whatever that is, I'm sure you could do it, and then you'll get some games with Amon. But this is a lot of fun, and I think that the power users really want the regular shows, but I think we have a lot of people that get a lot of goodness out of this kind of analysis with amateurs playing against more experienced players. So for some reason I'm not following it. Okay, there we go. I was not on the proper game, but now we are. And now we have Hutch's last game going. What's going on here? Hutch is white again. That's cool. A couple whites in a row to balance out the 2 blacks to start. So we had 4 games in today's show. Funsies. So what happened here? Let me just back this thing up and take a quick peek. So we had a Queen's Gambit. Okay. First of all, I'm going to give Hutch advice that on knight f6 he should take first. He should take because that's a chance to really punish his opponent. So we'll just explain that. But here he's got a traditional QGD and now it's sort of a Tartakower kind of QGD with an interesting approach. Black's queen having come out early. Not the most common standard thing here. A3, a good move by Hutch. Intuitively stopping the move knight to b4, but also it prepares b4. It also allows the rook to come to c1 without the pawn hanging on a2. So I was thinking maybe rook c1 was actually the best move there because it would have done two things. It would have both prevented the move black should play now, which is c5. Now you can't play it. And it actually prepares moves where the rook might even lift itself to this side of the board. So queen e2 is good, but I think if black plays c5, that's really the typical way black wants to play in these Tartakowers, because white has two center pawns to black's one, and normally this is a way that you can change that, right? If you get c5 and everything gets traded, dynamically the position is completely equal. In fact, if you look at the pawns, it's 100% symmetrical, right? Minus the h-pawn. So that would have been black's strategical way to equalize. In fact, b5 is really not a good move exactly because of what Hutch did. And hopefully he continues to execute his strength on the c-file, which looks like that's what he's doing. So I'm going to say this is a game Hutch should win now. I mean, positionally, the advantages are all that white has here. So you're saying, Danny, that might be a little early to say that. No material yet. But this is a massive positional advantage. This bishop is like a big pawn, right? Completely blocked in by all of black's structure. White has complete control over the only really the only open file on the board. And there should be several plans. Expand in the center, and then maybe even play e5. You can also bring the bishop back to b1 and try to create a mating net battery where the queen and bishop kind of line up over here. Knight e5 is also a great move. This is one of the positions where there's 10 good candidate moves because black's pieces are so passive, and black is really hurting to defend this weak positional pawn on c6. So, two notes so far I want to make for Hutch. He should have taken on d5 earlier. And then maybe even played rook c1 faster than queen e2 because of exactly what he got. But other than that, I love his chess game so far. I really have no other comments. And his opponent is really already over the creek. I mean, you could just take here if you're Hutch. That's a pawn. You could also, again, go back to my idea of put the bishop on b1 and try to create a battery. I'm a sucker for a checkmate battery. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying, right? No regrets, you know what I'm saying? Not even a single letter. Not even a single letter. All right, so now he's slowed down, which is good. He needs to think about what he wants here. As much as this pawn is tasty, right? Okay, he goes for it. I was going to say, as much as this pawn is tasty, he's probably considering good knight, bad bishop, and he'd be right. I mean, honestly, it's one of the reasons I still think this was probably better. If you do a move like that and then put the queen here, you know, this is really irritating for black. He ends up going for the pawn, which I can't blame him. A pawn is a pawn, and white is still winning. I mean, for sure, you've got a full, healthy extra pawn and control the c-file. But notice that the only other change in the position besides the pawn is that this bishop now has life, right? I mean, the bishop is like going Mel Gibson over here, screaming freedom just before he goes crazy in his career. I mean, the bishop is now a piece. The bishop here, not a piece. The bishop here, a piece. Not a piece, a piece. Not a piece, a piece. So you get my point. That's the only issue with that approach. But a pawn is also a pawn, and as long as he's accurate with his technique, Hutch should still be in pretty good shape. Couple moves here. b4, solidify that rook's position and say if you're going to take it, you're going to give me a protected passed pawn. Queen c2, I'll take it. Again, I would have considered, not right away, I guess I would, if I was going to do that, I would have considered taking and then coming back and still going for my first love of a checkmate attack first and foremost. But so those would have been other things. But again, queen c2 is also fine. Now he has to take with the queen though, because otherwise the knight hangs. So hopefully he saw that when he went for it. And that, no, did he really not? Okay, good. No, he saw it. Whew. A little heart palpitation there. Don't want Hutch to blunder. Yeah, so he sees it, and he's going into the endgame. And again, I mean, despite everything I said about the risk of taking that c-pawn, opening the bishop, He's played really accurately on the c-file, and so really this bishop should never get enough life to justify it becoming a better piece than it was. And now he's up a pawn. It's a healthy pawn, too. Move the knight, probably maneuver it around. You could even bring this knight actually around to b8, believe it or not, where moves like c6, and the knight actually maybe has some irritating things. You can also just bring the knight back to f3, right? If you're not impressed with any sort of aggressive knight journey, no shame in retreating. So, okay. Should be a win. We should get 2 victories here to finish off this show for Mr. Hutch, which will give him a plus score on the day, right? He drew the first game as black in a bad position, but drew somehow. And then lost, but then, he won his first game with white, and hopefully he converts here. So, it would be a good day for Mr. Hutch, and something that hopefully we also learn something from all the games. Okay, so his opponent is doing his best. Grabbing the center square is actually a good idea. It denies the knight the ability to come in and help the pawn. If you give black a whole bunch of moves, he's going to bring the king out. King f7, king e6. I love bishop b4. Good move. Putting the bishop under the pin. As long as he can keep that bishop there. So what I mean by that is, king goes here, he should do things like here, and then play like g4 and really kind of anchor this in so that the bishop doesn't get kicked from this diagonal. As long as he does that, black is really going to have a hard time unwinding. So yes, he can bring the king in, but you have to be careful. If you play king f1, then he can play knight takes e3 check. So for example, if king f7, king f1, tacticos, knight takes e3 with a discovered check, right? The pawn has to take, and then you get bishop takes e4, and now black may be better. So as long as he's aware of the potential risks of this bishop being sort of vulnerable on this diagonal, I really like this move. And so far he seems to be aware. This is a good move. He's probably preparing knight d3 and try to bring it around. I like it. Here is, okay, blunders a piece. I was worried he was going to go for that. The problem is he miscalculated. After takes, the knight actually defends the bishop. So he was sort of, this is a good example of the psychological tactics he was committed to. He played bishop e4 and was committed to the idea, oh, I've got a pin here. He can never move this knight. Never say never, okay? And so he had that psychologically implanted and then went for this plan based on the fact that he has a get-out-of-jail-free card to just gang up on the knight, and then lost because of that, right? He's going to lose this game precisely because of that psychological mistake and the blunder that came after it. Yeah, really, really unfortunate affair.
Got carried away, Danny. Got carried away at the end there.
Unfortunate, man. Highly unfortunate. We were just talking about it. Obviously, I know, we know that you pinned this knight on d5, which was a great idea, and with it, though, came this sort of psychological thought, okay, like now the knight can't move, all I need to do is gang up on it, and so you were sort of pot committed to that mindset all the way and didn't recheck the tactics once you got there.
Yeah.
Fair, right?
Very fair. Very
all
accurate assessment, yeah.
All right, so first, real quick pro tip in the opening. Are you seeing the beginning of the game here?
Yep.
So real quick pro tip, if you play the Queen's Gambit and they don't defend with a pawn, you should just take first and foremost. Just take it. Because if you think about the whole goal of the Queen's Gambit is you're trying to, you're just trying to seduce them into taking this pawn so that you might have the chance to regain it and have a big center, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that, all you've done is trade C pawn for D pawn. And in these cases, it's actually very tricky. I mean, you have to deal with all kinds of lines where they may try to hold on to the pawn or whatever. So knight f6 is really just a dubious move by black because now if you take here, you get everything you wanted without any of the risk of having sacrificed that pawn.
Okay, yeah. That
makes sense?
Looks like an objectively good position for white there.
Yeah. So, it's easy to, like, in the opening to just play real fast, especially because, like, I mean, you've probably played this position a million times, and you figure, 6 and 1, half a dozen the other, right? They play this move and then play here. What's the difference between that versus when he plays knight f6 and then e6? Like, is there any difference?
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
But there is, right? So that's just a small and quick pro tip, that this is a mistake a lot of people make, and it just can lead to a very, very quick very, very good queen's gambit for you.
I make that mistake on the black side, actually. I've been known to make that move.
Okay. It's different. I mean, well, I'm not going to digress into that because I talk too much. I don't want to go. There are some positions where it's possible, but in that position, no. It's just like a big no-no for black to take back on d5 with anything but a pawn.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so after that, we get a regular queen's gambit. So that was just a quick tip on the move order. Nothing spectacular. You took on d5, that's fine. I mean, you can also, it's more of a Tarticau or a queen's gambit. You can just play instead. I mean, you can just develop, and you don't have to break the tension right away. But, nothing wrong with this. And especially when he takes with the knight, you're kind of back to being happy that he's given you the center. And so your goal is, hey, let's just get developed, and then we'll have a big center.
Yeah. Okay.
I like it. I mean, knight takes, maybe again, just knight f3. I mean, I don't want to go into too much minor details. I would have played knight f3 because in a lot of these positions, if they take here, they're only really strengthening your potential center. That's a move that brings support into the most important area, not a move that takes away.
Okay, all right.
So probably that's one where you can just kind of stare at the tension instead of break it. But all right, you get developed, you get castled, totally happy. And I really liked a3, complimented you for that, said it was a good move. You stopped b4, but also you prepared to bring the rook to c1 because now there's no more queen gobbling this pawn. Good chess. Like up until this moment here, even with queen e2, you get the other rook over. Like literally, my advice was, during the game was, I'm going to remember to give you this pro tip in the opening about how to beat the move 2 knight f6, and then suggest maybe you could have done some small things in the opening. But really, I mean, honestly, this is like a perfect game so far. I mean, I think you kind of knew that. I think that was kind of the issue, is that as this game got more and more along, you were like, you had been better the whole game, that it kind of allowed you to make this blunder in the end, right?
What a stupid blunder, man. What a
unfortunate. I'm sorry. Happens.
I felt like I was playing decent chess, and then all of a sudden...
You were. I mean, 95 was a great move. I'll give you some things to keep in mind for future games, because I bet you get this type of Queen's Gambit a lot. Even if it's not always this spectacular, where you've got the C-file and the rook is all sexy up here. I would bet you get something like this with the queen and bishop here often. Is that true?
Either the queen's on C2 or E2, one of the two.
Right. So one thing I wanted to say is, in the future, one plan you can go for is to retreat this bishop to B1. And the bishop here has a number of things it does very sneakily well. One, in some cases, you eventually play E4, and with this big center, the bishop can come to A2, and it's really kind of useful here to punch E5 and D5 through, and tactically kind of an irritating little position. The other thing the bishop on b1 does is it creates the battery threat of the queen coming to d3. So let's say they do something, and you create this double attack threat. Suddenly they have some real issues on this diagonal. Whenever there's no knight on f6, this is just like, I think, something that, over time you just start to do. I mean, you just kind of smell, you smell blood, right? You just recognize the chance. And in the game, if you had opportunities for that, like maybe there would have been some other cool things you could have done. So when you're the one in a big advantage here, you're sitting on the advantage in this position. His bishop is like a big pawn, right? Just totally sucks. And you've got the rooks in the space. Consider things like this to be a little bit easier to go for, because there's really you're only going to change this position when you're darn good and ready, right? I mean, because you're the one in control. You're the dictator here. So you can look for ideas like that. That's all. You play 95. 95 is an aggressive move, and it's a good one. And then here you went for the pawn. Can't blame you for going for the pawn. But I was already highlighting to the fans. I was like, it's almost unnecessary, because also what's his next move, right? Like, you do something like this, and you prepare these threats, and it's very difficult to be black here when you're like, misery loves company, and he's just miserable, right? He's just miserable here. I mean, there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, I felt very good about my position in this spot right here.
All right, so you took the pawn, all good stuff, and I don't want to overdo it, because the truth is this was just a good game for you. Already here, I was saying that if you already had the bishop on b1 in a perfect world, now you've got tactics where you trade on c8 and then play like queen c2 with a double attack on the bishop and the mate.
Yeah, it's sneaky.
So just like keeping those little tactical patterns in mind, because they do repeat, right? That's kind of just a nice little move to keep in the back of your pocket. this isn't bad at all. You're better in the endgame, up a pawn. I mean, really the position is winning. I liked this move a lot, and I said it was a good move because it creates this, black is frozen. The only issue is you have to be careful about the discoveries. You were careful with that at first. You didn't play a move that would have been another way to fall for a trap. King F1 would have allowed knight takes with check, and then this guy.
Yeah, we didn't want that.
So you did good to bring the knight around, but we could sort of see it coming, and I was like, you're preparing knight to b4, and
just powerless to stop my silly blunders.
Powerless to stop you. But so again, it's a psychological error. We've talked about this. The big issue is that you played bishop b4. You knew it was good at the time. You were right, it was good at the time. It pinned the knight and created this bad situation. But anytime you're offering trades or dealing in tempo moves and dealing with tactics, you have to recalculate pretty much on every move. And so the danger we have is, especially in rapid chess, where we make a move that's so strong initially, we sort of take for granted that something may have changed in the position. And anything else you could have done here, g4, just sitting on the light squares and kind of saying, what are you going to do, buddy, right? Or, even you can even maybe, no, you don't want to do that. I mean, you can't get the king out. You can also play g4 and then try to get f3 so the king can come out this way without allowing that discovered check.
Yeah.
Black is really frozen to your will, and so it's just a matter of that psychological, totally forgot that this doesn't work. And
as soon as I made it, I was like, I've made a serious mistake. God damn.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It happens.
Well,
it happens to the best of us,
It does. I mean, it's painful when you make blunders like this yourself.
Salvageable, like if instead of doing that move, I did that. No, because he's still up a piece, and he's just going to get in there with that or something like that. God damn.
Well, I mean, that's a good idea. It would have been better, but it's just too much. Yeah, I mean, probably he can start to create other avenues for the knight, try to bring the knight here and pick apart some pawns. There's just not enough, not enough issues. The pawn isn't far enough advanced to keep the knight tied down, and there's not enough going on, so...
Well, I appreciate your time. Next time we'll try to run this a little bit longer because I have this thing I got to be at 3.
Yeah, I understand.
But I got a lot out of the analysis. I learned some things about the Queen's Gambit. Hopefully, I'll remember them next time I play. And if you're down to do this again, I'd love to have you back on. And
dude, you know it, absolutely. This will be a lot of fun. And next time we'll have maybe a full 2 hours and. We're actually handing off on Chess TV to another chess show that's starting right now. So I'm gonna get out of here too and let somebody else take over. So
okay, great. Yeah, it was good talking to you, Daniel. Thanks again for your insight.
All right, man. See you. Have a good one.
Take it easy.